Hey guys, so I just got back from a 4-mile run, and so I'm going to go through just normal yoga stretching that I would do after pretty much any of my runs. I try to spend maybe like 10 to 20 minutes stretching, just because that's when your muscles are the most warm and you're gonna pretty much get the most bang for your buck right after you're either running or working out. So one of the first things that I do right after I run is I just come to a standing position and lift my arms all the way up to the sky and fold forward over my legs. And I like to bend my legs or bend my knees and just let my head hang. And I kind of just move my legs back and forth and release any tension that I'm holding in the backs of my legs. Then I'll walk my hands over to the side and bend my left knee and keep my right leg straight. My hands are over to the left. Just getting a stretch in your side body and your IT band on the right side. And then switch over to the right side. This time, bending your right knee and keeping your left knee straight and getting the stretch on your left side. And come all the way back up to center and move your feet about hip width apart, or actually the width of your mat, and just fold forward. And kind of move your hips back and forth and just see where you're feeling tight in the backs of your legs and your hips. Again, just releasing the muscles in the back of your neck. Just let your head hang. And then slowly begin to bend your knees and bring your hands to prayer. And just sit here and kind of use your elbows to push your knees out a little bit more, opening up your hips. And then put your hands back down on the ground and kind of just scooch onto your butt. And bring the soles of your feet together and just let your knees just hang out onto the side, so you're coming into butterfly pose. And you can use your hands to push your knees down a little bit more to open up your hips. And then slowly begin to come forward. Bringing your hands in front. And if this is bothering your knees, just kind of release and come up a little bit, and you can bring your knees up a little bit. So only go as far as what feels good for you. And you should feel a little bit of a release in your lower back as well. And then slowly come back up and take your right leg out in front and take the sole of your left foot and bring it into the inside of your right thigh. And make sure your hips are kind of looking towards or facing towards your right legs. And then lift your arms up to the sky and fold forward. And if you want, you can bend your knee as well and bring your stomach to the top of your thigh. And when you do this, then you can start to straighten your leg. And you also feel a stretch in your lower back a little bit here. And if you want an even deeper stretch, you can take your left hand and reach around to the outside of your right foot and kind of twist over to the side and bring your right arm to the side. And then slowly come up. And this time you want to take your hips and open them a little bit more. And we're going to do a stretch to the side. So this opens up your entire side body. And when you're running, we're just running forward and our abs tend to tighten from breathing so much. So this is a really good stretch to open up the side of the body. So you want to inhale your arms all the way up to the sky and then reach over to your right foot. And if you need a little bit more of a challenge, you can take your right hand and reach to the inside of your right foot and try to keep your left arm up over your head. And then try to reach for your foot. And you'll really feel the stretch on the left side of your body. And then slowly come back up. And this time, let's switch sides. So take your right foot to the inside of your left thigh and straighten out your left leg. And take your hips so that they're pointing towards your left foot. Inhale your arms up and take a little bend in your left knee. And then slowly bring your stomach down the top of your thigh and grab around your foot. And then slowly begin to straighten your left leg. If you need a little bit more of a challenge, you can begin to bring your toes forward, and this will really stretch out your calf muscle. Or you can take your right hand and reach around to the outside of your left foot and kind of twist and come down and take your left arm next to you. And then come back up. And we'll stretch on this side, so kind of open up your hips to the side of your mat. And then inhale your arms up and stretch over to the left, trying to grab your left foot. And if you can't grab your left foot, that's totally fine. You can just take a bend in your knee and grab your foot, and then slowly straighten it as much as you can and just stay here. You should feel the stretch all along the side of your body. And then slowly come back up and take your hands to the front of the mat and step back into plank. And then exhale to downward facing dog. And just kind of step your feet back and forth and taking a bend in your knees and getting a little bit more of a stretch in the backs of your calves and your hamstrings. And then kick your right leg up to the sky. And on an exhale, place your foot in between your hands and drop your back left knee into the ground. And tuck your toes under and inhale your arms up to the sky. And grab your hands over your head and slowly lean back and then lunge a little bit deeper. Lean back a little bit more and lunge a little bit deeper. Remembering to breathe. And exhale, push your hips back and straighten your front leg. And then fold forward over that front leg. And then bend your front leg. And this time, we're going to bring the back knee up. And if you want, you can fold your mat up for a little bit more cushion on your knee. We're just going to stretch the quads. So keeping your knee and your ankle all in one line with your thigh. And you want to keep both of your shoulders facing forward. So you can keep your hand on your knee or bring it next to you. And you should feel the stretch all down the front of your left quad. And release your leg. Adjust your mat. And bring your hands to frame your front foot. Or bring your right hand to the inside of your right foot and take your right foot to the edge of your mat. And then slowly begin to roll onto the side of your right foot, opening up your hips. And you can stay here. You can come down to your forearms. And if you want to make this a little bit more challenging or more of a stretch, you can lift your back foot up and reach around to the right with your right hand and grab your back leg for a quad stretch at the same time. And release your back leg and frame your front foot with your hands, and then start to take your right foot to the side, your left side of your mat, and your right knee to your right wrist. So we're coming into pigeon pose. And just take a second to get adjusted. Take your right knee so that it's close to the edge of the right side of your mat. Your hip should be completely square to the front of your mat. And your back leg completely straight behind you. And inhale, bend back. And then exhale, fold forward. And slowly come up onto your forearms and just swing your back leg around to the front. And keep your right shin so that it's parallel to the mat in front of you. And then take your left leg and stack it on top of your right shin. This is called fire log pose or double pigeon. And sometimes some people's hips are all the way up here because they're so tight, or sometimes they're completely stacked. So it just depends on your hip flexibility. Just work with what you have. And just relax for a second. Just take a second to breathe and just let your hip muscles relax here. And if this is difficult, you can just stay here, or you can begin to lean forward and bring your arms forward, coming down and feeling the stretch in your outer hips. And slowly come back up. And this time, we're just going to cross our knees and take our left foot so that it's in front of our right knee and kind of tucking our right leg underneath. And inhaling, arms up to the sky. And then twisting over to the left, taking our right elbow to our outside of our left knee and twisting open. So giving our spine a nice little stretch. And then coming back to center. And taking the left foot back behind. And then kicking the right leg up to the sky. And opening up the hips and stacking them on top of each other. And bend your right knee. And just open up the hips for one final stretch on this side. And then place the foot down and kick the left leg up to the sky. And exhale, place your foot in between your hands, drop your back knee to the ground, tuck your toes under, And inhale all the way up. And grab your hands and interlock them above your head and start to sink back a little bit, and then sink a little bit lower into the lunge, and then go back just a little bit more. And sink a little lower, and move a little bit back. And then begin to move your hips all the way back, and fold forward, coming into runner's lunge. And then slowly bend your front knee and come back to your lunge. And then begin to bend your back knee and reach around to grab your back foot, keeping your shoulders square to the front of your mat. And then sink a little bit lower and stretching your quad. And release your back leg. And take your left foot to the outside, outer edge of your mat. And then roll over onto the left side of your left foot. And just begin to open up your hips. And you can stay here, or you can come down to your forearms. And if you want a little bit more of a stretch, you can bend your back knee and then reach around and grab your back foot to stretch your quad. And release your back foot. And take your left foot over your left knee to your left wrist and come into pigeon. So take a couple seconds to adjust. You want your left knee to be close to the outside edge of the left side of your mat. You want your back leg to be completely straight in one line. And you can bring your heel closer to your thigh, or you can try to bring your shin parallel to the top of your mat. It just really depends on your bone structure and your flexibility. So find what works for you. You should be able to feel this stretch in your glutes, right here in your hips and your side. So if something feels wrong, like bone on bone, then just kind of adjust and move around in this pose until you find that stretch. And it's not gonna feel that great. It's gonna be a little painful because you're stretching out that muscle, but find something that's comfortable enough for you to just relax and come down onto your forearms, or maybe down a little bit lower. And then slowly begin to come back up. And take a little stretch back. And then start to swing your right foot around. And we're going to stack the shins on top of each other like the other side. So bring your left shin so that it's parallel to the front of the mat. And then your right leg to stack on top. So your shins should technically be parallel. I don't have that flexibility, so I'm kind of adjusting to what works for my body. So you can see that there's this huge gap right here where my knee can't go down any farther. So that's fine. Just work with your body and what it can do right now. And you can stay in this pose if you're feeling the stretch on the outside of your hips. Or if you want to go a little bit deeper, you can start to lean forward, bringing your hands out in front of you, or coming down to your forearms and letting your head hang. And just relax. If you're feeling a lot of tension in your hips and you're feeling tension in your shoulders, just relax. Your muscles will begin to relax and this pose won't feel as difficult to do. And slowly begin to come back up. And we'll do a spinal twist. So kind of bring your left foot around and your right foot to the other side. Inhale your left arm up to the sky and take your left elbow to the outside of your right knee and just twist over to the right with your right arm behind you. And then come back to center. Swing your right leg back behind you. Bring your foot back and kick your left leg up to the sky. And open up your hips so that they're stacked on top of each other. And bend your left knee. And get this one last stretch in your hips. And then come back down. And then come to your knees. And this is a good time to stop. If you want to continue to stretch a little bit more, I can give you a couple more stretches, but if you're short on time, that's a pretty good stretch that hits a lot of the points, like your glutes and your hips, and your hamstrings and your calves. So 20 minutes of stretching is probably the perfect amount of time to stretch, especially after a run. So when your muscles are super loose and they're just much easier to stretch and you can go deeper in your stretches. So I highly recommend that you spend at least 10 to 20 minutes stretching. So for those of you who have more time, I can go through and show you one more stretch to do to kind of open up the entire front of the body. So when we're running, our psoas gets really tight and our hip flexors get really tight. So in our quads, our rectus femoris, the one that attaches to our patellar tendon up here, it goes all the way up our leg and reaches in to our hip and attaches at our hip. And so when those muscles get really tight, then that's when we start to have a lot of issues with lower back pain. So one thing that we want to do is we want to stretch out the entire front of our body. And one good stretch to do for that is bridge pose. So just bring your legs out in front of you and scooch onto your back and lower down. And bring your feet so that they're about hip width apart. And then your feet are about a foot from your hips. And just lower down. And then tuck your tailbone slightly under. So you're kind of like pulling your belly button to your spine. So just imagine there's a string attached to your belly button and someone is pulling it down towards the floor. So your back should be completely flat. You don't want to have this space in between your back and the floor. So bring it down. And then slowly raise your hips up, keeping the tailbone tucked and your core really squeezing. And then take your shoulder blades and kind of roll them in close to each other. So you're kind of inching your shoulders underneath. And then take your hands to clasp underneath your entire body. And then begin to push your hips up more towards the sky. And continuing to breathe. and then relax, coming back onto the mat. And another option is you can go into this pose again, or you can go into full wheel. And it's really up to you on what you decide to do, how much you want to open up the front of your body. I recommend if you have a lot of lower back pain that you just start off doing bridge poses and then working your way up into wheel. So once you have more of that flexibility, then you can get up into it. So go up into wheel or to bridge as a way to stretch out the front of your body. And that's all that I have for you today. And I can do another video. There's plenty more stretches to do after running. This is just a couple of the poses that I do right after I'm done working out. And I recommend generally holding each of those poses on each side for 20 to 30 seconds. That's when you're going to get the maximum benefit from the stretch. And if you just want to focus on one stretch right after you work out, just do that stretch a couple of times and hold it for 20 to 30 seconds. And you'll really start to notice a difference after your workouts when you actually commit to stretching. So, and if you have any questions, just leave a comment below the video and I'll get back to you. Thanks, guys.